Life is tedium. It's about doing the same thing over and over again, and then waking up the next day and doing that again. It's boring, but there's a way around that. You can take something that once was considered brutally hard work and turn it into a game. So I'm in Hayward, Wisconsin, which is a very little town with a very big axe problem. In the setting, it's just all water. There's woods, there's this enormous sky. They really enjoy the summer. It's a place where you might fall asleep to fading sunlight at 9 p.m. with the sound of target shooting in the back. Hayward actually was a center for logging at one point, which is kind of representative of this whole competition anyway. It's no longer a primary logging town. It kind of exists on the memory of logging. Like a lot of the things lumberjacks do in timber sports, it's not done anymore. These are all archaic and old practices that people still do in form of competition. It's kind of a celebration of this way of life. Well, you should know that the people who show up for this are showing up to a rodeo, albeit a very different rodeo than you might be used to. There are timber sports enthusiasts, but there are people out there for whom this is part of the culture. Little Ron Swanson's all flocking to the same point in worship of the same archaic art of taking a piece of wood and leveling it to earth. You get this weird motley assortment of people who are all coming there for one reason or another, but all to see the same thing. People chopping a ton of wood.
You are, of the younger generation involved in this. What drew you to it? What do you think continues to draw people to it?
I think it's the egos and the male bravado involved, and it's like you want to beat the next guy that you know you can.
Right. For instance, one might be able to cut through an entire 15-inch piece of wood in how many seconds in your case?
The competitive time would be 5 seconds.
Yeah, 5 seconds.
Around there.
Okay. We're not doing that.
We can try.
Okay, yeah, we're not. All right, so let's take a couple of cuts and see what I start to do wrong.
Just nice and easy, get your butt down.
Okay.
So the double buck was easy. I got to do that with Adam. Adam happens to be very good at this. It's his vocation and it's his recreation.
That was significantly more than 6 seconds.
Essentially, we're two motors pushing and pulling, and pulling. So it makes it a lot easier to go through this block of wood. Now you're the motor.
Single buck.
One man, one crosscut saw.
Oh God, that's hard to get going again. Good Lord.
Single buck, however, single buck was much more difficult. But I will say this, it doesn't seem impossible. It might be impossible to be as fast as a professional, but it's definitely something you can see yourself doing. And at moments, you sort of felt like a mountain man.
Come on, there we go.
And then you can imagine being up there in the heat of battle and competition, up on the stage, thousands of people are cheering for you, and you barely recognize the fact that you have a saw in your hand. It's just light as a feather.
Logging has been a tradition in our culture forever. From the very times that we had to build our pioneer homes to the very products that you and I use today. When you go back to the old logging cabs in the 1800s, there was a true competition. They truly traveled with the wood. Because the wood had to make it really from the bush down to the holding yard. I'm a forester. Guys aren't out there with crosscut saws and axes banging on this wood and putting the time into it. We've got the modernization of the industry. Guys now have cut-to-length systems. They can tie up $500,000 real easy in a piece of equipment. It's very, very mechanized. It's very, very computerized. It's very, very production-oriented. It's really kind of great that people still want to kind of do this and take that risk, that chance of going up 90 feet onto a tree. There's a real danger of getting up that high.
That looks like an elaborate dare, but that is actually tied to a real skill.
Absolutely. The old tree climbers would have to go up and fell the top of the tree to avoid timber being damaged at the bottom. There's guys actually doing it yet to this day to maintain the integrity of the lumber. They're going to go up in a treetop to make it safe.
The pole climbers have no sense of self-preservation whatsoever and are entirely out of their f***ing mind. So there really are two different kinds of athletes who do this, and they're not entirely different, but they're definitely distinct. On one side of the lake, you've got the chopping sports. These are big people, these are brawny people that are really good for chopping wood and getting force to a single point. On the other side of the lake, You have log rolling, the boom run, and the pole climb. You have the people who honestly look a lot like track athletes. They're lean, lower body's really built, tops very slight, and definitely the people who are more dexterous, nimble, and lighter.
And with log rolling, I mean, obviously, like, this is not something that you had to do necessarily.
It was, though. It was one of the most dangerous jobs at camps. So when those logs were in the rivers and they had to be pushed down to the sawmills in town, there were so many in there, the guys had to kind of go in and get them unjammed, essentially. So they would oftentimes get stuck in between or underneath.
What happened if you got stuck underneath?
A lot of guys died.
A lot of job openings
Yeah.
came about there.
I mean, when there's hundreds of logs in the water and you get stuck underneath, there was no coming back up. So that's why you had to be quick on your feet, and that's where I think, you know, they got the logs down to the sawmills and it kind of turned into a competition. I can run on that log faster than you, and that's where the competition aspect came, and here we are today. We have a few key things, okay? Number one, never stop moving your feet. Number two, you want to kind of keep your feet shoulder width apart. And number three, put your arms out, and that's it. It's just as easy as that.
Oh, that sounds, yeah,
That's
really-
it. Yeah, no problem.
You didn't even tell me how to get up.
Log rolling is impossible. Seriously, it's very difficult, and I don't want anyone to ever make fun of the sport, because the people who do it are very good and are doing something even more difficult than you realize. And please, try it. Go out there, humiliate yourself. I encourage you to.
Okay, 1, 2, 3.
I'm saying it. 3, 2, 1, go.
The hot saw, I think, is kind of the misfit event in all of this, and I don't want that to sound too weird, but everything else here is at least sort of based on something that people did, you know, in the pre-mechanized era. And then there's this kind of badass part in the middle where they trot out these gigantic saws and absolutely just annihilate this piece of wood and just slice through it like it was butter with a giant super-powered hot saw. That's powered by jet fuel. Jet fuel!
This bad boy that you are currently leaning on, this is your hot saw.
That is correct. It's a 325cc single cylinder engine. This chain that I have on this motor is actually antique. It was probably made in the 1950s. And otherwise, everything is handcrafted, handmade for racing.
Underhand chop. It sounds very simple until you realize that you're swinging an axe all the way down to your feet, which are very close together and are sometimes, I don't know, in the way of a swinging blade.
So what I have here is basic lumberjack chainmail. Ideally, this is designed to stop the axe, if it was to go into your foot, stop it from slicing your foot or toe off. You're gonna break bones, you're gonna bruise up, it's gonna be gnarly, but ideally you have your foot. Swing the axe as hard as you can. Okay.
Swing the axe at your feet as hard as you can.
I swung very slowly because I am terrible at things and do not like to chop my own feet off. It's terrifying, especially because competitors move at a pace that finishes this event well under 20 seconds.
It's coming apart, get ready.
No. That's nuts.
That's your first underhand.
Yeah, my last one too. I'm not doing that again. When you look at the future of this sport, okay, because this is something that you could be doing. You see some of your peers here doing it into their 50s. Do you think, how do I get other people involved who are my age? Or is it the kind of thing that you're like, I don't think I have to worry about that. I think enough people do it.
I think all over in the East and West, more people are getting into it.
I've tried all kinds of various stupid things, and everyone is so helpful.
We're all like a big family. We come to support each other. We're always there to help people. I mean, I've talked to about 7 different professionals at least today that were trying to help me out, make it a little bit easier for me.
It's an intimate sport and a sport with very low fences between those who've been doing it for a long time and those who are just getting started. It's very close and it's very tight. This is a place where the person who's doing the announcing asks for call and response. They don't have to ask twice. You ask for a yo-ho, you get a yo-ho! It's this collision of the unexpected and expected, the archaic and the new that really sort of makes Hayward this weird slice of American sport.